Oh, wait, you're listening?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
You're
Listening
to Radiolab.
Radio
From
WNYC.
See?
Yeah.
Latif, how do I pronounce your name? Because I'm pronouncing it the Yemeni way.
To pronounce it the Yemeni way. I'm
Latif.
excited about you pronouncing it the Yemeni way.
Because it's used heavily by Yemenis. Latif.
Like just to mean like something's nice or something? Or
Yeah. Or how's your day going? Latif.
Oh, yeah, I love
yeah.
it. Oh, that makes me feel so warm. Wait, now pronounce your name for me so I know how
my
to
God, it's
say your name the Yemeni way.
unpronounceable. Allah.
Allah?
Allah. It's like at the end, it's too much. Everyone kept calling me Allah, and I was
Allah.
like, I know I'm great, but I think that's too far, guys.
Hey, I'm Latif Nasser. This is Radiolab, and I'm talking with al-Shamahi. She's a paleoanthropologist and evolutionary biologist, and she's like honestly the modern-day Indiana Jones. She travels all over the place collecting fossils. Sometimes this takes her into active war zones or through pirate-infested waters, and she does all of this to help piece together the story of how humans came to be.
Thing is, as well, our story is kind of epic, man. Our story's epic.
She's got a new TV show out now on the BBC and PBS, and in it she explains that the origin of our species is kind of surreal.
We lived in a world that was a bit like Lord of the Rings. There was obviously the Neanderthals, which so many people have heard of, but there were all these other species, including one of my favorites, Homo floresiensis, who are basically these hobbit-like humans. They were really short. They were about 3.5 feet tall. Now, that means humans the size of penguins were living on this island in Indonesia called Flores. And on this island, there were giant rats and elephants the size of cows. So humans the size of penguins were hunting elephants the size of cows.
And at the same time that you had the Neanderthals and these penguin people, there were also other groups, like the Denisovans.
The Neanderthals of Asia.
There was a species called Homo naledi, another one called Homo luzonensis.
This was the world that, we were born into.
A world where our little tribe was competing with these other little human-ish tribes and often losing.
We were constantly not succeeding. And then we did. And we did so in the biggest way possible.
And the fact that we did, that it was us and not one of these other groups, Ella says that was extremely unlikely. The story of how that happened is amazing. It's what her TV show is all about. But what I wanted to talk to Ella about was this other very unlikely thing, her origin story. And the fact that she's the one telling us about all this stuff in the first place.
Okay, so what you're referring to there is something which I guess I have not really known how to talk about. God, up until quite recently. In fact, one of my friends turned around and said, just last year, you said that you might go to your grave with this. I was
wow.
Like, oh yeah.
Why has this been so tender?
You come from a religious background,
I
right?
do. I was very devout.
No way.
Yeah. And then I went off to high school, I went off to college, and I was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And I don't know.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I never get to have this conversation with people who have any kind of religious background, let alone a Muslim background.
Yeah.
I think my fear is that I do not want my story to be a stick to beat people who are in religious communities with.
I don't want that either. And actually, I feel like hearing Allah's story in her own words and how surprising and insightful and moving it is, like, I think it'll do the opposite. So I just asked Ella to tell me about it, starting from the beginning.
The community was incredibly tight. It was incredibly protective. It was absolutely overprotective as well.
Right.
Like
as a woman, I'm sure, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. Like I didn't wear trousers. I didn't wear makeup. It was an ultra conservative community.
Where were you again? Where did you grow up?
Birmingham, England.
Birmingham,
yeah. So my parents are Yemeni, but the community was kind of quite pan-Arab. And regardless of the denomination you came from or the sect or whatever, you were pretty much anti-evolution. And I really, really took to it.
Like for me, so the way when I grew up, it was this feeling of, okay, evolution is true, but Allah is this invisible hand guiding evolution. It feels like you didn't have that. Yeah.
No, clearly, your family exists. Clearly, there were families and individuals who did explain things like that.
Right.
But there was no space for evolution in my family. And there was absolutely none in the missionary world.
And what did you believe? Like, what was the creation story that you believed?
Yeah.
How did you think people came to be?
So I personally believed that we were created in a week, basically. God created us in a week, as in the whole world, including Adam and Eve.
It's weird. I feel like I know the Christian creationist story better than I know the Muslim creationist story in a way, or is it
very similar?
Very similar.
They're very, very similar. The one difference is that the Christians give God a day off. Muslims are like, God doesn't need a day off.
Anyway, so Ella was all in on this version of Islam. And before she even learned how to drive, she started sharing it with other people.
Yeah. I became a missionary at the age of 13 and traveled the UK being a missionary.
Wow. And missionary means you were going to, who were you going to talk to?
Well, I was speaking to more lapsed Muslims.
Okay, yeah.
But also to the wider public.
That was a hard... What years were these like?
Basically, in the 90s, I was basically certainly in the 2000s.
Because I was thinking after 2000, that would have been a much harder job talking to the lay public about Islam.
Well, except that we felt like we had clearly been misrepresented by these lunatics, right?
Yeah.
By these terrorists. And also remember, our communities were therefore under more attack.
Right.
I'll say I was really young. It was kind of the world I knew, and I guess I have always been an all or nothing kind of person. I clearly do not know how to do things in halves. And so I was like, okay, so this is the world around me. I'm not going to just do it in the calm, chilled out way that I should have done it like my siblings.
You were more hard edge about it maybe than your siblings.
I think I was more hardcore.
Hardcore. You were more hardcore than your siblings.
I mean, if you would just speak to them, and I don't want to put words in their mouth.
No.
They're just like, you just didn't have any chill. So it's really funny. So they look at me now and they're like, still don't have chill. You just went from one extreme to the,
Right.
It's just really funny because they're not wrong. I could have just, they're just relaxed.
Was it one of those things, I remember for us, it was and I feel like I was somewhat similar as you. It was because a bunch of my friends, they would go to the mosque, they would go to masjid there, and then they would but then it's afterwards, it's Friday night, we're going to go out drinking and we're going to have fun. And it was that kind of thing.
We would have had thoughts about you.
No, I didn't do that. But my buddies did that, and I was the straight edge kid who was like, no, I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking weed, I'm not doing any of these things.
So I was so strict that those guys wouldn't have even been my friends.
Yeah.
Except that I might have taken them on as projects.
Right.
So okay, imagine you're a missionary and you're that age and you're good, right?
Yeah.
Your big thing that's hanging over you is what you're going to do at university.
Because that was a big deal in your family?
Yeah, in our family, having a master's degree is the equivalent of a high school education.
Wow. Okay, so and what are all these people? What did they study?
All kinds of things. Historians, some legal, but theology kind of legal minds. Okay. And my dad was very encouraging of us going into the sciences.
Other people from her community had studied science to go into medicine or engineering, but Ella had a different idea.
I was like, I'm going to go study evolution because I'm going to destroy Darwin's theory.
Wow.
Yeah. I tackled the underlying assumptions of things.
And then to expose them, and then to persuade them, and then to
to basically proselytize my version of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying it's like this. Well, actually, have you considered it's actually like this?
Yeah.
Have you considered the data could actually fall into this interpretation instead?
And why that? Why was that the thing you fixated on?
Because I'm a missionary. My whole purpose is to bring people to the message, to bring people to God.
Right.
And one of the biggest reasons why they're not is that they believe that God doesn't exist, and the reason for that is that evolution exists.
So it's it really is for you. It feels like it's the same debate from Darwin's time. My God,
yeah.
You think we came from apes? We came from God.
Yeah, that whole monkey story ain't gonna fly kind of thing.
So when you applied, like, what did you say, or what did they?
Yeah, somebody asked me this recently. They were like, hold on. So you sat there in the interview and you were like, yeah, so I'm just going to be destroying your theory from the inside.
Yeah, that's right.
So
What did you say?
None of that. I just was like, I really want to study genetics. I think it's amazing. I love all the evolution classes, blah, 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 blah.
But you were lying. That was a lie.
I mean,
Was it?
I guess so. I'm not happy with the fact that you used that word, but I guess it was.
Yeah.
Because it was a lie of omission.
Right.
For sure. Yeah. Well, actually, I guess it must have been a lie because when they ask you, why do you want to study this? The actual answer is because I want to destroy this. And I clearly wasn't saying, damn it.
Was this like a private mission, or did you talk to people about this?
The other missionaries all knew about this.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't, I was never turning around telling the, other classmates who were.
You were a double agent, basically.
I like the sound of that. I mean, if you'd have known me at the age of 18, I was a dork. So
yeah.
The idea of being a double agent is somewhat hilarious. Look, I was obsessed. I was a woman on a mission. And so I turn up to University College London, which for those of you in the know is known as the godless place on Gower Street because it's the first university to have allowed non-Church of England people to kind of join up. And I went to the Darwin building because Charles Darwin himself, he lived there.
Yeah.
And that was my department. And by the way, it's kind of hilarious because I was dressed in very, very conservative Muslim garb. I wasn't even just in a hijab. I was in the full, so I wasn't just in the head covering. I was in the full jilbab, which is that full cloak.
Yeah.
By the way, not that there's anything wrong with dressing however you want. I'm like, man, you just be you, There were a few girls in hijab actually, but they were interested in more medical genetics.
Right.
They weren't kind of doing what I was covertly up to.
Right.
I remember there was one girl who was also kind of vaguely associated with my world kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she was there and I was so excited because I thought I'd found a partner in her. I was like, oh my God. And I was sitting there and I was like, right, so this bit of the theory, I'm just thinking that actually there's a different interpretation that you can have for this data, blah, blah, blah. And she just freaked out and she looked at me and she was just like, look, I'm here because this is a mandatory course. I have to pass this evolution class. Otherwise, I don't get my degree.
She had a firewall up.
Yeah.
But for Ella, there was no wall. She was pushing these two worlds right up against each other.
So there's two things going on, right? So I'm just living my life being a missionary.
Yeah.
I have an arranged marriage in via my imam, by the way. My dad wasn't even involved.
That started in university or in grad school? Or?
It was my first semester at university.
Really?
The imam suggested to me that, he wanted me to marry one of his other students. And I was like, okay. And so that took a while.
Excited about? Were you flattered? Did that feel good or did that feel icky?
You know what? I didn't know him. I had 3 chaperoned meetings with him to decide if I was going to agree to marry him. And then we basically never talked ever. I can't explain it enough. I just didn't know him,
right.
And we had to get my dad to agree. And so that took a while because dad didn't want me getting married before I'd finished my first degree. And
right.
So we had to wait. And so, all of this was going on. I was, traveling up and down, doing this, doing that. And at the same time, it's just constantly picking at this theory of Darwin's, right? I mean, effectively what I was doing was trying to unpack a massive puzzle. Now, everybody else had already unpacked it 150 years ago. And I'm coming along being like, hold on.
Hold on, we can put these pieces together another way.
We can just, we haven't thought of something. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
And by the way, some people do that to great success.
Yeah.
Some people have won Nobel Prizes on the back of this. I just picked the wrong puzzle, man.
Right. So Ella is going to class every day, learning about the evidence for evolution and the story the scientists say that evidence tells us. And of course, she's looking for holes in that story. And one of the first holes that Ella had always noticed was that particular moment in evolution when one species somehow poof, becomes another. How does that happen? And then one day she's sitting in class and the professor starts talking about this experiment.
the Drosophila fruit fly experiment.
Yeah.
So basically, because Drosophila live for such a short amount of time, you can basically instead of it being, a mountain pops up between two animals and it takes hundreds of thousands of years for them to evolve, you're doing it with Drosophila in a lab and you're kind of doing it in a much shorter time frame. You're just kind of separating them.
Yeah.
Without getting into it, they were starting to see the process of speciation in the lab. And I was like, oh, that's not good.
Because if we're watching them become new species, we're watching evolution, which I don't think happened.
Yeah. But my only comfort with that experiment was that it was being done in the lab. And I just thought, okay, but that might not be happening in nature.
Yeah.
Maybe it's being forced in the lab. Maybe in nature that wouldn't be happening.
But she keeps going to more lectures, and eventually she's running into other problems, like
stratigraphy, just the layers of Earth and that kind of sequence of animals that you get in them. And they are broadly chronological.
Yeah.
And you do see an evolutionary process there.
Yeah.
You just do. And it's really, really hard.
It's like
to
you
explain.
dig deeper, you see simpler things, kind of, generally.
Yeah. It is... Forgive my language. You can't you're like the BBC, right? You can't broadcast swearing.
No, we can broadcast swearing. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Sorry, I've been cleaning up my language.
No, go for it.
Yeah, like you would be looking at these stratigraphic sequences, and it was forgive my language, but it was a motherfucker, because you were just like, right, we haven't gone from complex to simple. By and large, we go from simple to complex,
right,
or more complex. And it was just a consistent pattern. And it's very, very hard to explain that. So then I was like, okay, theologically, the real issue is Adam and Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So technically speaking, I can believe in evolution as long as it's not Adam and Eve, as long as it's not us. We're the exception, right?
Right. So you're like, okay, so you gave a little ground. You were like, this makes sense.
Yeah,
I can give
a lot of ground. All other species
all
but
other
us.
species.
Yeah, all the other billions.
That's right. But not us.
Yeah. And then what happened was I came across retrotransposons, which are very, very complicated to explain, but basically it's like a foreign organism's DNA within our own bodies, within every...
So retrotransposons, they're little bits of DNA from, for example, a virus that infected our ancestors millions of years ago and just got stuck in our genome and passed on from generation to generation. They're like this little historical record of something that happened to us a long, long time ago. And the reason Ella remembers this is that when she was learning about retrotransposons in a lecture, the professor mentioned this weird fact about these little bits of DNA.
The pattern of mutations within the retrotransposons that we have align on a family tree with what you would expect from evolution if you then looked at those same retrotransposons within chimps.
In other words, these little bits of DNA, I mean, there are hundreds of them, are lodged in the chimp genome in exactly the same places that they're lodged in our genome.
How does that, the only interpretation for the mutations that you find in retrotransposons is that it is evolution through descent with modification over, hundreds of thousands. There's no other interpretation.
Like God would have had to copy paste or something?
Yeah. This is the thing, because one of the arguments that, for those of you who don't know, one of the arguments that creationists use to explain, well, why is our DNA so similar?
Yeah.
Right? Why is our DNA so similar to chimps? They're like, yeah, but they look similar. And they have so many similar behaviors and they have so many similar mechanisms, blah, blah, blah. And on one level, you're like, oh, okay, that is actually, there is some logic to that.
Yeah.
Retrotransposons, they're not functional.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, it's a bit of DNA that helps me process, for example, water or helps me process carbohydrates. Right. It's a non-functional bit of DNA. And yet its mutation pattern fits almost perfectly with an evolutionary family tree. And it was just like, it's just... Sorry, that's the noise that you make when your whole life is about to fall apart. That exact noise is the noise you make.
Wow. And
I was just in hell. I was in hell. There'd be times where I'd just be looking out my window, just going, oh my God, what is this? What am I going to do?
Were you living with this guy at that point? Or what were you?
This guy, my ex-husband, yeah.
You're married?
Yeah, our marriage wasn't doing great. Partly because we had an arranged marriage and we didn't know each other, but partly for a number of different reasons. One of which was this issue. Yeah. I was clearly struggling. And then there was a moment, just an awful moment, which was I was just in the shower. And as you often do in the shower, you're kind of just having a conversation with yourself. You're also, bluntly naked and you're very exposed, but you're in a safe place, right? And I basically tell myself that I have to find the strength to be honest, that I believe in evolution. And I just fell to the floor. I was like hysterically crying. I was just so distraught. And the reason I was so distraught at this point was that I knew that meant I was going to have to leave my world.
How do you leave your whole world and try to join another one? And what does it do to you if you do that? We'll be right back. Hey, I'm Latif Nasser. This is Radiolab. I'm talking with al-Shamahi, who went into college as a creationist and came out an evolutionary biologist. A 180 that she feared would basically destroy her life as she knew it.
I had no idea what was going to happen with my family. Because, it hadn't happened in my family before, right? But what I did know is it was going to drive a massive wedge.
And why did it feel so existential? These things could not coexist. There was no room for you to believe in evolution and still be a part of your community.
Because it's such an extreme thing in my world, and say that you believe in evolution. And, we just didn't do that. And by the way, all cases where that did happen, let me tell you, loads of those girls got cut off. Thank God my siblings came through in the way that they did.
Wow. How did they come through?
They decided to embrace me regardless. They decided that I was their sister regardless. It makes me want to cry.
And what about your friends and other people in the community?
I didn't tell people. I just disappeared. I didn't tell people.
You just ghosted people?
Yeah, I literally just disappeared. And that's because I was a missionary and I knew the training. And the training is if somebody, falls, you go collect them, basically.
Yeah.
And I did not have the energy. And also, this is the strange thing. I didn't want anyone else to follow me because I didn't want them to go through what I was going through. I was like, no, you know what? You don't need to learn about evolution. You just stay where you are.
Yeah.
This is awful.
Yeah.
It was truly awful time. I had no idea how to exist in a secular world. Suddenly, every single thing did not have a rule attached to it, which you might think is freeing, except if that's the only thing you've ever known, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
It was like you went into the bathroom with a left foot, you left it with a right foot, you wrote with your right hand, you
the prophet would have done this
with your
in
left
this situation.
hand. It's like every single thing is prescribed, and suddenly it was like, good luck. I didn't make eye contact with men.
Yeah.
I literally never made eye contact with men. I took my headscarf off and I turned up to a gas station.
Yeah.
And it was the most anticlimactic. And has probably informed a huge part of my personality since, because no man cared. I had been told my whole life that my hair was and you got to cover up because it's a fitna. It's it's corrupt. It corrupts the earth if you. It's a bad translation, but it's all these things you've got to do to not.
Because it's raw sexuality. It's that kind of thing. Is that the feeling?
I don't know what it was, because let me tell you, nobody cared. Nobody cared. I cannot express this enough. There were no men dropping from my sheer beauty. Nobody was fainting. Nobody was doing anything. Nobody cared. And it was so funny.
Wow.
But it was, it was quite an adjustment. It was like, I've got to now learn to fit in. And it's funny because I think anthropologists traditionally, and as I am a paleoanthropologist, you kind of go and sit with these exotic, in inverted commas, tribes, and you kind of learn their ways.
Right.
And I was like, my exotic tribe is just central London. It's just like, that's it.
Yeah.
Me, and I would sit there studying people's behavior and like going, all right, so this is how they act. Okay, so this is, okay, all right, so that's, I wrote a book about the handshake, right? Writing a book about the handshake does not come because somebody is like just casually not questioning. Writing a book about the handshake comes when you are obsessively reading the behavior of every person around you.
Right.
Because in your culture, you never shook hands with men.
Right.
I had this one friend who was just like, oh, you must be so relieved to be free. And I was just like, do you understand the trauma that I've just been through? Like, I didn't want this. This isn't what I wanted. Certainly, like now, 10, 13 years later, I can look back and go, I'm glad that, I'm not constrained by dogma unless I pick that dogma. But, let's not pretend that this is a fun world. I mean, I'd definitely rather be here, but let's not pretend it's perfect. Like, I think the community thing is I think this is what I have found really, really, really difficult to explain to so many of my secular friends who are basically my tribe. Now, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
I will never, ever, ever be in a community like that again. I think religious communities are warm. They engulf you. They embrace you. Your hot water goes off. Everybody offers you their place. Somebody ends up in hospital and people get angry with the hospital administration because they're like, what are you talking about? Only 2 people during visiting hours. And what's this visiting hours? This person needs us all around the clock. And it's just kind of...
Oh my God, I feel I'm raising kids right now and I'm not raising them in the mosque that I grew up in. And it's like, it's sad. It's, I yearn for that.
It's so difficult. It was like I didn't know who I was anymore. And the people that were around me that would normally love me and knew who I was, they were all new too.
And in the midst of all this upheaval, Ella was still going to school and starting to become obsessed with the thing she would spend her entire career studying, our origin story. That moment when there were all these little groups of proto-humans living together on the planet at the same time, but also very much separate from one another.
I think it is no surprise that having gone through what I've gone through, that when I look at our story, the science of our story, that I feel something. Like, I feel something. We know that everybody from outside of sub-Saharan Africa, and even some people within sub-Saharan Africa, have some Neanderthal DNA in them. And that can only be explained by basically one of our great-great-great-grandparents having sex. Yeah, having sex with a Neanderthal. So there's a scandal in the family, basically. Now, usually, right, the way this would be presented is, oh, there's some Neanderthal DNA, so that means that there was some kind of intercourse, blah, blah, blah. All right, we take a moment. And instead, it's like, hold on a second, right? That means that one of our ancestors, not like a theoretical, like one of my and your ancestors was half-half.
Right.
And I'm not mixed race, but I'm mixed heritage. So I'm a British Arab, right?
Right.
Let me tell you, that was confusing growing up at times, right? At times I was like, it was a bit weird. I'm like, what would it be like to not just be mixed heritage, don't be mixed race, but mixed species? Like, what would that have been like? And what would the mother have felt? Like, how would she have felt? Would she have been sitting there hoping that the child would look more Homo sapiens than Neanderthal? Because, she doesn't want them to get ostracized. She doesn't want them to get teased.
Like pregnant, like that mom is sitting there pregnant, like thinking about whether her baby's going to have a brow ridge or a chin or something.
Seriously.
Is there any evidence to suggest that crossovers like Neanderthal and Homo sapiens, us couplings, made us more successful? Like that, those...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were the new kid on the block. And for example, when we entered into Neanderthal territory, Neanderthal territory being kind of Europe and Northern Asia, we would not have had immunities to local diseases. So when we interbreed with those people, it's effectively like a cheat. So suddenly we end up with immunities to things that would have taken us ourselves tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years to evolve for. There are some really, really good examples, actually. And the best one is the Tibetan example. Are you familiar with this one?
No, tell me.
So Tibetans live at obviously very high altitude, and the mechanism, the genetic mechanism by which they are able to exist at high altitude is very different from the genetic mechanism that exists in other populations who exist at high altitude. And the mutation is actually one that they inherited off Denisovans.
Like we drank their superpowers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are these sort of hybrid people.
Yeah.
And you are kind of like, in a way, you're one of these crossover people. I mean, this experience, this ordeal that you went to. Yeah. But like, what? So okay, so if that's the value of the crossover person, it's like, oh, I can get, I now have superpowers from both worlds or something. What did you gain from that crossover?
I would say I was so traumatized by it, and still am. Like within a second, I could get quite upset about it. And I think when you've been through that, you are much more patient with people who deny the science, don't trust the science. Because I understand that when I am trying to persuade somebody of a scientific point, 9 times out of 10, I'm not trying to persuade them of one scientific point. I'm effectively taking apart their worldview.
Yeah.
And because I've gone through that, I approach that with empathy by and large. Doesn't mean that every so often I don't get irritated, but I just fundamentally, at my core, understand that when somebody has that belief, it's not one belief, it's a belief system. And I then approach it as such. So then what I find myself doing is I actually have less interest in debating that point with them and more interest in bonding with them as a person and showing them who I am and me seeing their humanity. That's why it gently does it for me in terms of the methodology. And also fundamentally in my mind, accepting that they may never believe me. They may never accept my version of events, and that's okay.
Al-Shamahi. Again, her show is called Human. It's on PBS and the BBC. Man, she's so good in it. And it really features the full menagerie of proto-humans. The team of fully human humans who put this episode together, not even one Neanderthal among them, was Jessica Young and Pat Walters, with help from Sarah Kari. It was fact-checked by Diane Kelly. Special thanks to Hamza Syed and Misha Euceph. And you for listening. We will be back soon with another episode. I just have to kill this tiny elephant first. Catch you later.
Hi, I'm Monica, and I'm from Mexico City. And here are the staff credits. Radiolab was created by Jad Abumrad and is edited by Zoran Wheeler. Lulu Miller and Latif Nasser are our co-hosts. Dylan Kiffey is our director of sound design. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Jeremy Bloom, W. Harry Fortuna, David Gable, Maria Paz Gutierrez, Sindhu Jan Sambandan, Matt Kilty, Annie McEwen, Alex Neeson, Sarah Kari, Sarah Sandbach, Anissa Bitze, Ariane Wack, Pat Walters, Molly Webster, and Jessica Young, with help from Rebecca Rand. Our fact-checkers are Diane Keeley, Emily Krieger, Anna Pujol-Massini, and Natalie Middleton.
Hey, Radiolab. Michael, Tacoma, Washington. Leadership support for Radiolab science programming is provided by the Simons Foundation and the John Templeton Foundation. Foundational support for Radiolab was provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.